Welcome back to another deep dive. If you're joining us today, you are probably someone who absolutely loves that ultimate aha moment.
Oh, that is the best feeling.
It really is. It's, that rush when you take a massive, overwhelming, just seemingly completely disconnected mountain of historical records, and suddenly you see the hidden strings tying every single piece together.
Right.
So today, we're putting on our investigative historian hats. We have a very specific and honestly kind of a monumental mission for this deep dive. We are going to map out the architecture of the Pokemon Prime Mega Timeline.
Which is, it is a staggering historical undertaking. We are looking at a meticulously categorized chronological history of an entire multiverse here.
Yeah, no small feat.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And to do this, we're pulling from this really fascinating stack of primary and secondary sources. We've got regional evidence files, constitutional framework rules, and this massive trove of lore notes. Plus,
But maybe the most incredible source we have on the table today are the firsthand journals of a constant observer.
yes, the journals are incredible.
They really are. He's known in the historical records only as Trainer Michael. We're going to use his boots-on-the-ground perspective to basically distill decades of apocalyptic lore into one cohesive, lived-in history.
It grounds the whole thing.
Completely. But to understand the modern era, we actually have to go back way before any of these trainers were even born. Looking at the framework documents, every single event we are about to discuss is a direct reaction to one terrifying, inciting incident.
Yeah, we have to rewind about 3,000 years before the modern era, straight to the Kalos region.
Yeah.
We need to examine the actions of a man named King AZ.
The monarch.
Right. 3,000 years ago, AZ was a king, just absolutely consumed by unimaginable grief. His beloved Pokemon, a Floette, had been drafted into this terrible regional war and had fallen in battle. And in his despair, AZ engineered a machine designed purely for resurrection.
And the crazy part is, it actually worked.
It did. It was a success. It brought his partner back to life. But the sheer volume of life energy required for the process demanded a massive sacrifice. And by this point, AZ's grief had completely curdled into this deep, consuming rage.
So he didn't just stop at resurrection. The historical schematics show he weaponized the machine. He twisted this life-giving device into the ultimate weapon to just unilaterally end the Kalos War.
And he actually fired it.
He fired it. The blast literally obliterated armies and ended the war in a single instant, but the cost was horrific. Floette, realizing the mass destruction that was caused in its name, abandoned AZ. It just left him to wander the earth immortally for 3 millennia.
And the fallout of that single decision is essentially the big bang of our prime mega timeline. The sheer cosmic energy unleashed by the ultimate weapon, it couldn't just vanish. It rippled across the globe.
It had to go somewhere.
Exactly. Its atmospheric fallout literally rained down as glowing meteorites in the Hoenn region, which created the very first megastones.
Wow.
And at the exact same time, that immense atmospheric disturbance reached all the way to the Galar region and stirred a slumbering cosmic titan named Eternatus. So everything we're about to discuss, the heroes, the villains, the technological leaps, it all traces its roots back to the moment AZ pushed that button.
That sets just such a heavy, tragic stage for everything. But our first recorded human protagonist steps onto the scene much later. We move to the 1870s, to a frontier known as the Hisui region.
Which modern maps call the Sinnoh region?
Right, exactly. And the records here are wild. Humans at this time are absolutely terrified of wild Pokemon. But then, this teenager named Ray literally falls out of a space-time rift in the sky. He lands in Hisui and he partners up with a little grass owl named Rowlet.
And Ray's arrival triggers this massive sociological shift. He gets conscripted by the Galaxy Expedition team, and his primary mission isn't just surviving the wilderness, it's to create the world's very first Pokédex.
What really stood out to me in the Hisui evidence files isn't even just the dimensional rift, it's the technology of the era. If you are used to the modern era, you picture standard, mass-produced Pokeballs pumping out of a pristine factory.
Not back then.
Not at all. Ray is out in the wilderness crafting early capture devices completely by hand. He is mining raw tumblestones, these striking geological deposits, and hollowing out raw apricorn nuts. It is a totally rustic, dangerous process with a crazy high failure rate.
It really highlights how fragile humanity's foothold was. Ray's journey transitions the human race from an era of barricading themselves in villages out of pure fear to an era of actually understanding and documenting the ecosystem.
And the mission scales up so dramatically.
It really does. He eventually navigates to the summit of Mount Coronet, quells the frenzy of the region's massive noble Pokémon, and captures Arceus itself, the creator deity of this universe.
Uh-huh.
Ray literally lays the foundation for all future human Pokémon coexistence.
So Ray builds that bridge in the 1870s. We fast forward over a century and we hit the true foundation of the modern era. The year is 1996, the Kanto region.
The big one.
Yep. A kid named Red starts his journey in Pallet Town with a Bulbasaur. According to the law of primary authority, this is the definitive start of the contemporary timeline. Red blasts through the region, defeats his rival Blue to become champion, and then he just vanishes.
He retreats into total isolation at the freezing, snowy peak of Mount Silver.
Right, which leaves this massive socio-political power vacuum in Kanto. Because without a visible, active champion, organized crime steps right in to fill the void.
And that brings us to 1998. 2 years later, a new kid, Chase, steps up in Kanto, partnering with a very stubborn Pikachu. Chase's defining historical moment isn't just about winning gym badges. He systematically dismantles Team Rocket.
Yeah, when Chase takes down their leader, Giovanni, it's not just a victory in a battle. It is the collapse of an entire shadow economy.
Exactly. Team Rocket controlled casinos, they infiltrated major tech conglomerates like Silphco, and they ran massive wildlife smuggling rings.
So forcing Giovanni to disband the organization completely shifts the balance of power in the region.
But the timeline, cross-referencing for 1998, is where the history becomes incredibly dense. Because while Chase is dismantling a mafia in Kanto, an entirely different crisis is unfolding down in the Hoenn region.
Right at the same time.
Yes. Brendan, who the records confirm is the son of the Petalburg gym leader Norman, starts his journey with a Trico, and Brendan finds himself caught in a massive eco-terrorist plot. A group called Team Magma manages to awaken Primal Gruden, a super-ancient titan of the land, threatening to literally scorch the Earth's oceans away.
I just have to pause and look at the sheer scale of what happens next. The sources detail an event called the Delta episode.
Oh, this part is unbelievable.
Brendan stops Primal Gruden, but then a meteor is detected hurtling toward the planet. Brendan literally dons a pressurized spacesuit, rides a mega-evolved Rayquaza into the Earth's exosphere, shatters the incoming meteor, and catches an alien DNA Pokemon named Deoxys, all in 1998.
I mean, imagine the global geopolitical tension. You have two separate children saving the planet at the exact same time. One is collapsing an entrenched shadow economy, and the other is fighting aliens in the stratosphere to prevent a localized climate apocalypse.
If I'm a regular citizen reading the global news that morning, I'm absolutely terrified.
The structural integrity of global society was tested to its absolute limits that year.
And that economic collapse in Kanto eventually spills over. We move into the year 2001. In the neighboring Johto region, a trainer named Ethan partners with a Cynical. Team Rocket tries to make a comeback to fill the power vacuum again, but Ethan definitively crushes their remnants. He ends them for good.
And he captures the legendary diving Pokemon, Lizera.
Yes, but the ultimate historical payoff here is Ethan traveling to Kanto, climbing the freezing heights of Mount Silver, and tracking down the legendary Red. Ethan defeats him in the snow, forcing Red to officially pass the torch to the new generation.
And following that pattern of simultaneous crises we saw in '98, the year 2001 features a parallel crisis. Up in the Sinnoh region, a young trainer named Dawn and
her partner was Turtwig,
facing an existential threat. A cult known as Team Galactic, led by a nihilist named Cyrus, is basically attempting to unmake the universe.
The philosophical dread of Team Galactic is wild. Cyrus wants to use the deities of time and space to wipe the slate clean because he believes human spirit and emotion are fundamentally defective.
And we report on Team Galactic's goals purely as historical lore, impartially detailing their dogma without endorsing their extreme views on erasing reality, of course. But understanding their motivation is crucial to grasping the mind-bending scale of what Dawn accomplishes to stop them.
The physics of this encounter are staggering. Dawn has to enter the distortion world to stop Cyrus. Let's break down what that actually means.
It's an alternate dimension of antimatter.
Right. Gravity flows sideways, waterfalls flow upward, and time just doesn't behave normally. Dawn doesn't just catch a rare creature in there. She literally confronts Giratina in its origin form. She traps the deity of antimatter in its unbound state to stabilize local gravity and save existence.
It is almost too much for the history books to handle, which is why the introduction of Trainer Michael's journals is such a breath of fresh air for this timeline.
I was looking at Trainer Michael's journal entries for this exact period, and it completely reframes the era. We see all these old saviors averting apocalypses, but Michael represents the constant witness. He is the everyday citizen.
His journals detail him starting his journey in Unova in 2006 with a Snivy.
Then, in 2007, he travels through Kanto and Johto. There's a great entry where he notes finally catching a Totodile he names Jolie and mentions how creepy the burn tower is at night. He is just earning badges and battling his brothers.
And in 2008, he's in Hoenn entering Pokemon contests and getting tangled up in minor localized artifact heists.
Exactly. Trainer Michael grounds the massive apocalyptic events in a human perspective. When you only look at Red, Chase, Brendan, Ethan, and Dawn, history looks like nothing but cataclysms.
But Michael's quiet, steady growth across these eras reminds us that millions of people are living normal lives, studying, and building bonds with their teams in the background of these mythic events.
He's the grounding wire for the whole timeline. But of course, the timeline doesn't stay quiet forever. It ramps back up into a massive ideological and physical conflict. Let's look at the Unova region
In the year 2011,
Very dense year.
incredibly dense. A trainer named Hilbert partners with an Oshawott and finds himself caught in a massive philosophical clash with an organization called Team Plasma and their king, a young man named N.
This conflict is famously known as the Battle of Truth versus Ideals. Team Plasma argues for the complete, mandatory separation of humans and Pokemon. They claim it is the only path to true Pokemon liberation.
And again, we're impartially recounting their historical dogma to understand the conflict.
Right. This ideological war manifests physically. Hilbert awakens Reshiram, the Dragon of Truth, while N commands Zikram, the Dragon of Ideals. Hilbert ultimately wins the clash, proving through his bond with his team that human-Pokemon coexistence is genuine and beneficial.
But the Unova files show that the ideological debate fractures almost immediately.
only 2 years later,
In 2013, a second crisis explodes in Unova.
a new protagonist, Rosa, partners with Snivy.
And Team Plasma is back.
They are, but the philosophical debate about liberation is gone. They are now an extremist, militarized exploiter faction led by a man named Getsis. There is no talk of ideals. Getsis just wants stark, authoritarian domination.
The technology Getsis deploys here is horrific. He uses advanced genetic splicing tech to forcibly fuse an empty, frozen dragon shell known as Kyurem.
With the Dragon of Ideals, Zekrom. The result is Black Kyurem.
A terrifying fusion generating absolute zero temperatures.
Rosa has to take down this frozen monstrosity to save the region from being plunged into a localized ice age.
2013 is arguably the most pivotal year for our modern timeline. Because while Unova is dealing with two back-to-back crises, a massive threat is erupting in Kalos. And if we connect this back to our broader investigation, this is where history circles back to the inciting incident we discussed at the very beginning.
The 3,000-year-old ultimate weapon.
Precisely.
In 2013, a trainer named Serena partners with Fennekin. Serena becomes one of the first trainers to truly master Mega Evolution.
Immense localized power born from the ancient fallout of AZ's weapon.
Serena finds herself up against
An organization called Team Flare, led by Lysandra.
Lysandra's motivation is incredibly bleak. He thinks the modern world has become too crowded, too greedy, and too ugly, so he literally unearths King AZ's ancient ultimate weapon from 3,000 years ago. He wants to fire it again to wipe the slate clean and eliminate most of life on Earth.
Serena stops and frees the legendary Pokemon Xerneas.
Legendary Pokemon of life, and permanently shuts the weapon down. But the historical climax of 2013 isn't just stopping a villain.
It's what happens after.
After Serena becomes champion, she is challenged to a public battle.
By the immortal King AZ himself. Through the sheer passion and energy of that battle, AZ finally processes and lets go of his 3,000-year-old grief and rage. And because his heart is finally at peace, his eternal flower flow descends from the sky and returns to him.
It is a stunning emotional payoff to the tragedy that started this entire timeline. And looking at the journals, Trainer Michael was actually present in Kalos during this era?
Yes, he was in Geosage Town when the ultimate weapon erupted from underneath the city.
Which brings us to the most recent historical eras, a period defined by interdimensional physics and temporal displacement. Let's look at 2015 in the Alola region.
The 2015 Alola records read like heavy sci-fi. A kid named Elio moves to Alola from Kanto and picks a Poplio. Ilio finds himself dealing with the Aether Foundation and a group called the Ultra Recon Squad, who literally travel here from an alternate dimension where they have exhausted all their natural light.
And the crisis peaks when a blinding cosmic dragon, Ultra Necrozma, bursts through an interdimensional ultra wormhole and begins stealing all the light from the Alola region's sky.
Ilio actually has to travel through a wormhole to an alien metropolis to defeat it and restore the sun.
And here is where Trainer Michael steps out of the background and into the fray. Shortly after Ilio saves the region's light, Alola is invaded by Team Rainbow Rocket.
The Coalition.
Yes, this is a terrifying coalition of past villains. Giovanni, Maxie, Archie, Cyrus, Gitzies, Lysandra. But these aren't the villains our heroes defeated. They're pulled from branching alternate dimensions where they actually won their respective conflicts.
That is terrifying.
Trainer Michael's journals show him fighting shoulder to shoulder with Ilio to repel this multiverse threat. Michael provides tactical suppression against the grunts, while Ilio delivers the finishing blows to the leaders. It is a brilliant historical moment of the everyday veteran supporting the new prodigy.
I can just picture the tactical coordination between the two of them. Moving forward to 2019, the timeline hits its peak in the Galar region. We have two heroes here, Gloria and Victor, partnering with Sobble and Grookey. The culture in Galar treats Pokémon battles like massive, televised professional sporting events. But beneath the roaring stadiums, ancient history is waking up.
This is the final historical payoff to our inciting incident, Remember Eternatus.
The cosmic entity stirred by the atmospheric fallout of AZ's weapon.
It's exactly. In 2019, it finally awakens fully, triggering an apocalyptic region-wide storm known as the Darkest Day. Gloria and Victor team up with the legendary warrior Pokémon, Zacian and Zamazenta, to subdue Eternatus once and for all. After saving the region,
Victor goes on to train in the Crown Tundra.
his skills.
And that brings us right up to the present day. The year 2022, the Paldea Paradox. A student named Juliana partners with a Sprigatito at the Naranja Academy. She gets swept up in several massive storylines, but the core investigation involves descending into the great crater of Paldea, known as Area Zero.
The mechanics of what she finds down there are fascinating.
They really are. She uncovers paradoxes, ancient primal creatures ripped out of their temporal context by a time machine. We're talking about the sheer ecological terror of introducing ape-ass predators from 1,000,000 years ago into a modern biome.
It's an ecological nightmare.
Plus, she discovers the tragic truth that the region's top researcher, Professor Sada, had passed away years ago, and Juliana has been communicating with an advanced AI android the entire time. Ultimately, Juliana works with the legendary Pokemon Koraidon to shut down the time machine and save the region's ecosystem.
What I find incredibly poignant about the 2022 era is checking in on Trainer Michael one last time. His wandering days are largely over. In 2022, he has settled down in Paldea.
Full circle.
Yeah, he works as a mythology teacher at the Naranja Academy. He watches Juliana begin her journey from the classroom. He has fought alongside champions, witnessed the fallout of ancient weapons, and battled interdimensional syndicates. But now, he is passing his knowledge on, quietly watching the next generation take the reins of history.
That is the perfect evolution for his character. So looking at this massive stack of framework documents, evidence files, and journals, what does this all mean for you, the listener? Why did we go on this deep dive?
Because taking these seemingly random, disconnected adventures and weaving them together completely transforms them.
Exactly. It turns a collection of isolated incidents and scattered lore into a rich, breathing, living history. You now have the ultimate shortcut to understanding the entire architecture of the Pokemon multiverse.
Every major event is a masterpiece of cause and effect. A king's grief 3,000 years ago created a weapon. That weapon's energy seeded the earth with megastones and stirred cosmic storms. Those ancient ripples directly shaped the destinies of Ray in the ancient past. Red and Chase in Kanto, Calum and Kalos, Juliana and Paldea, and quiet, steadfast observers like Trainer Michael.
Every single piece connects. But before we let you go, the framework documents mention a very specific rule that we need to unpack.
Right. Throughout our investigation, the constitutional framework documents continually reference something called the Multiverse Clause.
The Multiverse Clause.
It's an established historical rule that explains contradictions by confirming the existence of branching timelines. Essentially, every major choice creates a new, parallel branch of reality.
Wait, if we apply that Multiverse Clause to our inciting incident, what happens in the branch where King AZ never fired the ultimate weapon,
Well, no weapon means no cosmic fallout released into the atmosphere.
which means no meteorites raining down on Hoenn, no megastones, an entirely alternate universe where mega evolution simply does not exist. I want you to mull that over as you go about your day. What did those conflicts look like when the stones simply aren't there? How does history play out in a world without that 3,000-year-old trauma? Thank you for joining us on this historical investigation. Keep learning, keep questioning, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.